Good evening and welcome to the BBC News at 6. A demand for Britain to pay nearly £2 billion to the European Union has sparked a major row. A clearly angry David Cameron says he won't pay and that it's completely unacceptable. The bill is the result of the annual recalculation of how much each member state should contribute to the EU budget, depending on a nation's economic circumstances. Britain would be a significant loser this year. The additional £1.7 billion demand is equivalent to about a fifth of the UK's total annual contribution. France and Germany are winners this time. They're being given a rebate by the EU. Our Europe editor Gavin Hewitt sent this report from Brussels.
For the Prime Minister, a defining European moment. A day when he vented what he called his deep frustration and anger. He had been presented with a demand for £1.7 billion, a budget surcharge, because Britain's economy had outperformed the others. He interrupted the meeting, insisting that the extra payment was unacceptable and must be reconsidered. And when he spoke later, this was a lectern-thumping Prime Minister.
We are a member of this organisation. We've invested in this organisation. We're a leading player in it. And you do not, join an association that suddenly thumps you with a bill for €2 billion 3 weeks before you've got to pay it. It is not an acceptable way to behave.
Officials insisted the new budget rules had been agreed by all states and described the new payments as a technical adjustment. The Prime Minister wouldn't have it.
It is a vast sum of money. And that is what makes me so angry about it, is when you listen to some in the Commission, how they talk about it. Oh, well, it's an adjustment. You just have to pay this bill. That's the way it goes. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. This is taxpayers' money. These are the people who employ me. These are the people who give me my job. I represent them, and I want value for every penny that they have to give in their taxes.
The new payments fall due on December the 1st.
It is not acceptable. It is an appalling way to behave. I'm not paying that bill on the 1st of December. If people think I are, they got another thing coming. It is not going to happen.
The issue will now be discussed at an emergency finance ministers' meeting. The Prime Minister did have allies. Italy, in recession, also faces paying more. The Italian Prime Minister warned that people would conclude the technocrats and bureaucrats were without a soul. For much of the day, the outgoing President of the European Commission, José Manuel Barroso, said nothing. But later he said nobody should be surprised by the figures because they were provided by the member states themselves.
And, of course, I understand the concerns that it has raised in London, but any person that wants to look at with objectivity and honesty to the rules that were approved by member states has to accept that sometimes these decisions happen.
Some leaders insisted that Britain should play by the rules it had agreed to, but the row raises again the whole issue of what Britain pays to the EU. So, just how much do we give to the European Union? Last year, Britain paid £17 billion to the EU. The country got back a rebate worth over £3 billion, and Britain received £5 billion from the EU, payments for regional development and other projects. In all, the UK's net contribution to the European Union was £8.6 billion. In the UK, the sudden demand for backdated charges was seized on by Eurosceptics.
We are stuck in a club. We signed up to a treaty 40 years ago. The rules are the rules. We can't do anything about the free movement of people, and we can't do anything about this £1.7 billion surcharge. Either you want to be in this club or you don't.
Despite all the Prime Minister's fury, it should be noted that he only said he wouldn't pay on December the 1st. He didn't rule out having to pay some extra funds later. But after this performance, it is now a key political issue for him as to how far down he can negotiate this demand for an extra €2 billion. David Cameron was asked whether, as a result of this, it was more likely Britain would leave the EU. It doesn't help, he answered. Gavin Hewitt, BBC News, Brussels.
Let's talk to our political correspondent, Carol Walker, who's at Downing Street for us now. Carol, David Cameron thumping his fist on the table repeatedly there, but what actually are his chances of reducing this bill?
Well, certainly the word from Downing Street is that we're going to see a lot more of this fighting talk. I'm told that he actually interrupted President Barroso during the meeting and warned him of the consequences of slapping a demand like this on voters at a time when many people, not just here in Britain but around Europe, think that Brussels is too powerful and out of touch. And he's got His own MPs, many of them cheering him on at a time that the Conservatives are fighting to prevent UKIP winning another parliamentary seat. What are his options? Well, normally these technical adjustments, as the Commission like to call them, are not subject to negotiations. We know that there is going to be this emergency meeting of European Union finance ministers, and there'll be some tough talking then. Beyond that, well, he could simply dig in his heels and refuse to pay, defy the Commission to launch some sort of legal proceedings. But others in his party say that ultimately he will have to cut a deal. And there are some who are warning that perhaps he may have raised expectations too high, that he won't be able to deliver, and that this desk-thumping rhetoric may make it even harder for him to win the sort of allies in Europe that he's going to need if he's going to get this bill written off.
Karen Walker outside number 10. Thank you.